It is. All right, let's bring on the guest, Garry Riles. He is a radio producer for a long time. He currently runs the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, and he produced radio shows for Walter Payton and Gale Sayers, football legends, not only in Chicago, but in football lore. They are huge. And here's the interesting thing. Hey, Garry, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gary. Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to join you.
Here's the weird thing, and producer Alan pointed this out. This is the 34th live show. And what was Walter Payton's number?
You got it. 34.
Okay. I'm just hoping for the mega tonight. Oh, the mega.
There you go. There you go.
Welcome to the show. And I can talk to you about a lot of things, but something happened this week when you were doing your show, and I really enjoyed it because I like when things are uncomfortable and they're squirming as you listen to something or you're watching a TV show and there's something very awkward and it comes right through the screen. And I think you had that moment, Garry, and you can tell me your feeling about it, but you had the owner of the Chicago Bears on, George McCaskey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in the middle of the conversation, you kind of dropped this on him. Hey, why don't you give the Walter Payton family 1% ownership of the Bears?
Yeah.
And he didn't know that was coming, I would imagine. And I heard him squirm for about 3 or 4 minutes trying to get out of that. And he never responded to that in the way you would like him to respond. Have you heard back from him since?
No, we haven't heard anything back from the McCaskey family or anyone from the Bears organization regarding that situation. And the interesting thing about it is I was thankful and appreciative that the chairman, George McCaskey, agreed to come on the show because once the Bears were eliminated from the playoffs and their season was over with, many may know or may not know, but Chicago fan base were calling for the heads of the general manager, Ryan Pace, the head coach, Matt Nagy, people in the front office, because it was an embarrassment. It was a debacle, and we wanted change. And so George McCaskey, they had their end of the season presser. He and Ted Phillips, the president and CEO of the Chicago Bears. And then they made individual media runs around the Chicago area, being on with the local sports talkers. And so we were able to be a part of that. And I was grateful and appreciative that he decided to come on. And of course, we throw out the questions. Is Matt Nagy coming back? What do you think about Ryan Pace? And we get the politically correct answers all throughout the interview for the most part. And he spent, I got to say, he spent 45 minutes on the air with us, which is phenomenal. And it's typically unheard of, to be honest with you, to have someone of his stature to be on for so long. But he gave us the politically correct answers. Oh yeah, we like what we're seeing. We're not happy with the season. Blah 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 blah. But the question that I posed him, which had been on my mind for quite some time, and I've been carrying it around for some time, and that is ownership, representation as far as minority, ownership, because the Bears and the McCaskey family simply don't have that in their front office or their board or anything of that nature. And so I always felt that Walter Payton, he is synonymous with Chicago Bears and football. And Papa Bear George Halas loved him. He just simply loved him. And of course, for those who may not be aware, Walter Payton, who passed away in 1999 unexpectedly at a very young age due to cancer, he had placed a bid to become the first minority owner, African-American owner of a football team, the National Football League. And that, of course, was the St. Louis Rams back during the time when they were in St. Louis. And he was denied by the owners because he didn't get enough votes. And Walter was simply devastated. He was literally simply devastated and crushed that after all of his contributions and hard work and dedication and loyalty and passion for the sport, that the owners turned a blind eye to his requests. And of course, he's no longer with us. So it's been sticking with me. And so I took advantage of the opportunity when George McCaskey came on. And after listening to all of this politically correct answers, I said, well, let's step out and tell him and ask him and see what he says. And initially, Gary,
Yeah.
I was looking for 24% of the Payton family to be owners of the Chicago Bears franchise, but I knew it was a little bit too far outlandish. So I said, well, let me settle for 1%. And so when I posed the question to Mr. McCaskey, to George, as you as you just shared, he started backpedaling and he started, praising the Payton family and the contributions of Jarrett, the older son of Walter Payton, and of course Brittany, his daughter, and Connie, his wife. And he never answered the question that, that's something that we would look into. That's a great idea. None of that. And so my job was to get that out there. And I told him in the interview, hey, listen, it all starts with an idea. You put some legs on that idea, get some people around that idea, discuss it, marinate on it, and you see what happens. And as of a week, we haven't heard anything. So I was just happy that I had the opportunity to put that question to Mr. McCaskey.
Do you think he thought, well, you ambushed me? I was not expecting this, and there's no way I could answer it with, oh, yeah, we'll give the Payton family 1%. I understand that. He can't make that decision on his own, I'm sure. But I can't imagine them. Well, here's the thing. Let me go back. This is something that they should have done on their own. I just think it's good karma. I believe in good karma. I think it's something the Bears should extend to the Payton family and say it's 0.5%. The Bears are worth, I think, $3.5 billion.
Right.
That's their value.
Right.
I don't think it's going to kill them if they give the Payton family 0.5%. Walter Payton was iconic to the Chicago Bears and to football. And they should use that as okay, the team has been crap for many decades. It's not just this last season. And they've been hemming and hawing about why it's bad and all this. But it's time to just do something that makes it all kind of feel better and just do something in this department, because the team could be crap for another who knows how long.
Yeah. Gary, that's a great assessment as far as this team is concerned. And to answer your first end of the question, I didn't take it as if he may have thought that I ambushed him, for the simple fact that he had spent 45 minutes on the air with us. And prior to coming on with us, I did ask him, is there anything that we should stay away from or you don't want to address or discuss? And it was open forum for him. So I don't think that he felt ambush. I think he was certainly caught off guard because we were going along with his Q&A as far as the politically correct answers to all the questions that we were asking. But I think he was surprised by the question in its own right. And I guarantee you, I can't guarantee you because my wife always say you can't guarantee, but I say 99.9% certain that he took that question back to Virginia McCaskey, Ted Phillips, to the people in place, and said, we need to think about this and kind of evaluate this thing, because the great Mike Singletary just interviewed for the defensive coordinator position for the Bears this past week. So that was an indicator for me that they're thinking about this. But as far as the Payton family getting a piece of, and you're right, 0.5%. It doesn't matter if it's 0.5%, 1%. I thought 3.4% for 34, whatever the case may be. This is something that the family themselves should have addressed and made happen. They didn't. It didn't happen. I think it's a step in the right direction for them, and it's something that they seriously have to consider and think about, for the simple fact that what Walter Payton means not only to the city but to the sport itself, the National Football League. And when you have the Man of the Year award every year to remember, in my opinion, the greatest football player to ever lace them up, the least that the Storybook franchise could do is talk to the family and ask them. They may not even want it, but ask them. We would like to give you 1% ownership of this team. There
is no black ownership in the NFL right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have, I think, a minority owner, but no African American. Gary, there are 6 head coaching positions open after the season, right? There's one more job to be filled. That's down in the Houston Texans. No, none of the 6 positions that have been filled were filled with African Americans. One by a minority, but none by African American head coaches who are looking for an opportunity. So, as far as ownership is concerned, certainly there are no African American owners in the National Football League.
Let's go back to when Walter Payton wanted to get the St. Louis Rams. How qualified was he as far as what you need to own an NFL team?
Well, from what I understand and recall, he had a substantial amount of financial backers, powerful financial backers who were willing to put up the money. And of course, as we all know, at the end of the day, money talks, BS walks, as they say. But Walter Payton was positioned and had some serviceable individuals in his camp, to respectable and credible individuals in his camp, to make the push forward. Because one thing about Walter, he was always prepared, and he did not want to go down this venture without making sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. He was positioned, and he felt that the package and proposal that they had put together as a team was worthy enough for these owners to vote in favor to give him this team.
And here we are 20 some years later. Has there been any other black individual who wanted to buy an NFL team and couldn't get there in the same way Walter did?
Right. No, there hasn't been any, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any other African-American businessman or interest that wanted to put up money to get a football team in the National Football League. And it's unfortunate. It scares me, Gary, the fact that it's 2021 now. We're still talking about the inequalities and racial justice and everything that's going on in this beautiful country we call the United States of America. So it's really so disappointing and sad that we still have to even discuss these topics. And when I was a kid, growing up on the South Side and watching these teams and watching Walter Payton, and then getting the opportunity to work with Walter Payton and get to know his family and Jared and Brittany, and to still see in 2021 that there's no representation or anything outside of the Man of the Year award to honor Walter Payton. To me, as a fan, as a Chicagoan, as an African American, it's almost a disservice. Yeah. It's really a disservice.
Steve just texted in and said, I think he should own 100%. His family should own 100% of the Bears. I mean, again, it's just good karma. I mean, for what he did for the Bears and the city of Chicago, it's a feel good for everybody. And I know a lot of these sports owners in all sports, it's a weird club, because I remember that Mark Cuban wanted to buy the Pittsburgh Pirates because he's from Pittsburgh, and they locked him out because they have their own little weird orbit, and they don't want anybody that's remotely not into whatever that weird orbit is in their orbit.
Yeah. And here's Gary. Here's the scary thing about all of this. Ted Phillips, who is the CEO president of the Chicago Bears, who's been with the team for 20 plus 30 years. And I understand he's a very intelligent man. He's very good with numbers and money, having gone to Notre Dame and Northwestern. But the Bears family, the McCaskey family, and the organization put more stock in Ted Phillips than they actually do the man who helped take that franchise to the next level,
to their one and only Super Bowl.
And and Ted Phillips has never run the football. He's never thrown a pass. He's never thrown a block. He's never lifted. I don't know if he's ever lifted a weight, but he's never contributed on the field the way that this man, Walter Payton, has. And for his family not to be recognized, honored, and again, put a proposal together and say, hey, we want you to be 1% owners in the Chicago Bears franchise. It's almost ludicrous to me. And I do appreciate the fact, Gary, that you're keeping this going.
I just, when I heard it, Jerry, I thought, come on, it seems like a no-brainer. I know I don't have any skin in the game, but just as a good karma situation, like I said, okay, I saw this 2-part series on Tiger Woods recently. It's airing on HBO or something. And something was pointed out in this that I thought, yes. And I thought this before all of this came out, as far as Tiger and his troubles with women and all that. And when he came back to play the Masters, this thing is called the Masters in the South, right there. You know, there's something still not right.
Garry, ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding. You win, as we used to say back. You're the caller of the show, even though you're the host of the show. Because think of when all this started unfolding in 2020 with the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all of this. We kind of posed the question. We really didn't throw it out on our show, the Rewind Sports 60. But I asked, several people, do you think they should change the name of the Masters because it's called the Masters? And
Right.
I got the response of people kind of like frowning upon me, like, no, you can't do that. I go, but you have to understand, when this game came about, when this tournament came about, they only just recently allowed women into this country club atmosphere, and it's called the Masters. And
Tiger wouldn't even be allowed in that golf, whatever that thing is, if he wasn't a champion. I mean, they wouldn't let him have the time of day. And the other thing I noticed is when he had the scandal and he came back to play the Masters, right about 6 months after, the guy that runs that thing, he had a press conference. They said, well, this is not the way we want our club represented, and he better shape. And I'm like, and Brian Gumbel was part of this, and he said, if that was a white player who did that, they would have never publicly beaten him like that. No. And it's true. It's this is none of our business, a lot of that. And I know I'm kind of one off from where you're at on this, but it's just weird stuff like the Bears, who have a park district running their field.
Right.
This is an NFL team. The Chicago Park District is in charge of their field. I mean, right there, it seems like it doesn't scream success to me.
It doesn't. And again, we're talking about, a new era. And the Bears continue to practice their old way of business, and teams, organizations, they're running past them. And I give the example as far as moving into the next, century, or the next era. And you look at what happened with the Chicago Blackhawks and Papa Warts, how he ran the organization. And now most of the finances or the money that's made for the Warts family is through their liquor distributorship. So Papa Warts was like 18,686 fans come through the turnstile at the Chicago Stadium, UC, or whatever the case. He didn't care. He didn't care. If you can't watch it on television, so be it. Once he passed and Rocky took over, we see the success that the Chicago Blackhawks has had because they moved into the next realm. The Cubs did the same thing. They finally moved into the next era, and they won a championship. The Bulls are finally doing it after getting rid of John Paxson, who I love, and Garth Foreman. But Michael Reinsdorf felt, hey, Dad, we got to move this thing to the next level, or we're going to lose. Yeah. And they did that. So the Bears are the only team in Chicago, basically, that are still practicing old ways of doing business, and it simply won't work, and it simply won't fly.
Well, speaking of the Bulls, they got rid of Jordan and Pippen when they probably still had at least 3 championships in them. Here's the analogy I make. That's like getting rid of Lennon and McCartney in your band. I mean, what are you doing? And here they are, 23 years later, still trying to rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different show, Garry.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think Jerry Reinsdorf is probably the best owner in the city of Chicago. But he has his flaws, and one of his flaws is, and I love to work for him, to be honest with you, but his loyalty to his employees. He's loyal to a fault. And that was the case with the Bulls and Jerry Krause, that he was so loyal to Jerry Krause and gave him the power to do whatever he wanted. And that's where we find ourselves today, 20 plus years later, trying to rebuild a franchise that the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, built.
Yeah. All right. And it's 35 years since the Bears won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
35 years now. I mean, come on. Something ain't right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I had a chance to send part of the interview to Fred Mitchell, longtime Scribe, award-winning Hall of Fame journalist here in the Chicagoland area, covering all ends of sports. And he applauded me and said, thank you, congratulations, and awesome. Because he understood and understands what it means personally as far as the family is concerned in the city, but what it means as far as race relations are concerned in this country and just in this city. And it was just something that someone needed to do and someone needed to put into place. And I guess I was the guy to pitch it to Mr. McCaskey. And again, I hope that it does not fall on deaf ears.
No, so far, I don't see them all getting together. Oh, okay. How can we get that 1% of the Payton family? And I just figured after he was done with your conversation, he just went, oh, that was interesting. I'll forget about that. I hope it isn't that, but that's the way I picture the whole thing happening. Because when I see Virginia in the skybox eating the peanut brittle and the hot chocolate, she's almost 100 years old.
Yes. Yes.
Now George is what to Virginia? I don't know that whole Venn diagram of the McCaskey families.
Yeah, I think that's like the grandson.
He's the grandson to Virginia.
Yeah, I believe that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here this weekend we'll watch Tom Brady, who went to another team, still in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers from a smaller city, who's a marquee Hall of Fame quarterback, still in the playoffs year after year.
Yeah. Here's the scary thing, and I pitched this to George, and again, he had a politically correct answer for it. I said, look at the Rooney family. I said, Pittsburgh. I said, they had 3 head coaches, and all 3 head coaches have won Super Bowls.
Right. And their current head coach is a black head coach.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I go look at the Green Bay Packers, from Bart Starr to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and his understudy is on the sideline. So the quarterbacking situation, they've been able to master that, but yet here in Chicago, we fall short of the quarterback. We fall short of the coaching. How do you fire an African-American coach who went 10-6, and you fire him because you wanted to go in another direction?
And you're talking about Lovie Smith. They had a black, right. It's not like they didn't have a black coach before. They had one. He's 10-6. We don't like what you're doing. Oh, you'd rather be 4-12 or 8-8 or whatever the hell you are now.
Yeah, and when I brought the record, this past year's record, to Mr. McCaskey, I said, the team finished 8-8. He corrected me. He said, no, Jerry, we finished 8-9.
Yeah.
So he was proud of an 8-9 record, indicating that they went to the playoffs. But that was sufficient for him to say, hey, we were 8-9 this past season.
Yeah.
And in my book, that's not success.
No, that isn't. Jerry, I hope you enjoyed the homage to Ohio State that Alan put together at the beginning of the show. I see you have your Ohio State stuff in the back there.
Go Buckeyes!
And your son is there now?
No. He was there. I attended the great Ohio State University back in the. I just missed the Woody Hayes days, but back in the 80s, my son fell in love with the university, and he attended in the early 2000s. God bless him. And he once he graduated, he went on and got his master's from Northwestern University, the Kellogg School of Business. And he and his beautiful wife are happily residing, guess what, in Humboldt Park in Chicago. And Humboldt Park has changed considerably. But I said, son, you want to live in Humboldt Park?
Now, for those who don't know Humboldt Park, explain why you're saying that.
Well, Humboldt Park, again, when I was a kid growing up, we were terrified from the news coming out of Humboldt Park because of all the crime and the violence around that area. But over the years, Mayor Daley, the son, he was able to get in there and clean some things up. And of course, current mayor Lori Lightfoot is trying to spruce things up as well. So the neighborhood has considerably changed, but back when we were growing up, it was really, really a challenge just to even drive in the area, but it's changed considerabely now.
All right. Jerry, we will talk down the road. If you hear from George, I'm not expecting that. Maybe you are. We'll talk again about this, but keep it going. I love the idea.
Oh yeah, we'll certainly keep it going. I thank you so very much. It's a pleasure. And if we don't hear from him, that's fine. But I truly believe, and again, with Mike Singletary getting an interview as a defensive coordinator for the Bears, to me, that's an indication that they're thinking about it, and it's a step in the right direction. So we'll certainly keep you posted, Garry.
All
And
right.
thank you, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank
We
you,
miss
Jerry.
you. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Jerry Riles, ladies and gentlemen. All right.